On the 29th of March 2019, I took the train from St. Catharines Station to West Harbour Station, and I decided to count the number of passengers. I was curious to see how many people would take a train that runs only once a day, ridiculously early in the morning, and takes a really long time to get both to Hamilton and then on to Union Station in Toronto. I started at the back of the train and then walked to the front of the train along the lower levels, counting the people along the lower and front middle levels as I went. Then I went to the back of the train along the upper level and counted the people on the upper and rear middle levels. Here I am in the rear of the train, the 12th car, heading along the lower level. So this is a newer car. You can see the new style of seats that are now being fitted on new trains in GO Transit. Not too bad so far. We got 3 passengers in those 2 segments. And here we got the 11th car, which is a bit older. It's got the previous generation of seats, which some people say are actually more comfortable than the current generation. One unexpected consequence of my trip down the train is that I got really familiar with all these doors, the different door mechanisms here. Here's a 10th car, which is actually one of the oldest cars in the system, although obviously it's been renovated pretty recently. It looks pretty modern. But if you were to see the outside of the train, it's actually, you'd see the rivets holding it together, because this was back when they were actually riveting trains together, rather than nowadays they weld them. I found with those automatic push button doors, you really just have to punch them. I was having trouble initially, pressing them lightly or then pressing them firmly, but I found out that if you just sort of jab them, they seem to work. But it took a few tries for me to actually figure out how to get out the door. This is an older car here with a manual door. And then from this side, it's just touch sensitive. You just touch it, and then it opens on its own. And I had no problem getting into the automatic doors. It was just that button to get out I sometimes had trouble. And here's a swing door, because this is actually a cab car. So on the left, that's a cab where an operator could sit to operate the train. But nowadays, this is an older cab car from 1990. Nowadays, GO Transit's been tending to use its older cab cars as middle cars, because they got a shipment of brand new cab cars which apparently have better crash rating. So they've been using those on the fronts of trains as cabs, and then the old cab cars are just using them as regular coach cars. So we got 2 people downstairs here. It's a bit better than some of the other cars we've been through. So now we're in the 5th car, which is always the accessibility car. So the 5th car back from the locomotive, it lines up with the raised part of the platforms, so you can get on with a wheelchair or any other kind of mobility device, or anyone who wants to not have to do steps. It's also got, you can see the next stop display screen. I mean, those should just be in every car. I'm not sure why they're only in the accessibility car. The train is bouncing around quite a lot here. In general, I find GO Transit trains have a pretty good ride quality compared to other trains on the same track. But the track between Hamilton and Niagara it's not the smoothest. So there's only so much the train can do to smooth out the bumps. So coming into the third car, total number of people we've encountered so far is 9. And we're not going to encounter anyone else on this car, are we? Yeah, the camera just died there because it's an old camera. It can only record 5 minutes at a time. But there wasn't actually anyone there in the video that I missed. Alright, finally, we made it to the first car of the train. So we've now traveled over 300 meters through the train, and it's actually a surprisingly large amount of work to walk through the entire train. So here we are at the front of the train, and so far on those 2 segments of the trains that I was counting, there were 9 people. So now we'll go up, so we'll be counting the upstairs and the rear. So we're heading towards the back of the train now. So this section here, 0 people, and then this section here will also count, also 0 people. So adding in the total from downstairs that we counted earlier, we can have a total of 0 people from this car. And the second car is also going to come up with a grand total of 0 people. It's got nice automatic doors though. Here's a person, I think, no, we counted them earlier. Yeah, so the total is just that one passenger we already counted earlier. Another passenger here upstairs. And the second passenger is actually on the left there. I have this instinctive thing where I tend to point the camera away from people because I'm used to filming trains. And I don't really intend to have people in my shot, but since I'm trying to count people, I realize that's kind of counterproductive here. But you'll have to take my word for it that there was a person there. I was counting while I was actually doing this. There's someone in high vis on the left. I later found out that's actually a mechanic for a GO Transit, or I guess Bombardier working for GO Transit. It is the morning rush hour right now, so the upper level of the coach is considered the quiet zone, where talking is discouraged, and, well, I mean, people are generally supposed to be quiet. In addition to the rules about people being quiet, I've noticed by looking at the sound levels from this recording that it actually just generally is a lot quieter on the upper level, especially than the middle levels. Looking at the waveform from me walking through the train, you can clearly see the audio levels dip as I'm on the upper level of the coach compared to the ends of the cars. Oh yeah, this is the one that's a cab car. So you can see the window on the left there. There wouldn't really be any point in having a window there in the other cars because it would just be looking into the next car. But there is one because that car is supposed to be a cab car. Or at least it used to be a cab car. You may have noticed by now that every single one of these train coaches was pretty much the same as the rest. They're all the same model. And that's not a coincidence because every single coach in the GO Transit fleet is a Bombardier bi-level. Or rather, the coach we now know as the Bombardier bi-level, considering that originally it was built by Hawker Siddeley Canada, which was then merged into the UTDC, which was then bought by Bombardier as we now know it. It was actually originally designed for GO Transit in the 1970s. It's a very space-efficient design, with a middle level over the axles and a low-floor segment between them, which allows the upper level to be a lot lower than it is on some other bi-levels, or rather double-decker trains such as the gallery cars used in the United States. It's also arguably the most successful passenger coach in North America, with over 1,000 of them in service. Although of those, over 650 are in service with GO Transit. It was a lot of work to actually go up and down every single flight of stairs in the GO Train. I mean, it's equivalent to climbing and going down a 12-story building, I realized after the fact. Yep, camera died again, but that time I realized it was dying, so I stopped moving. Finally, in the 12th car, got a person there. There were already 2 people downstairs. Got another person here. Another person there. So that's a total of 5 people. Here's the distribution of people we counted in the train, which added up to 18 passengers. Interestingly, it's not evenly distributed throughout the train. There's a clump of people at the back of the train, and then another clump of people in the middle of the train. But this can actually pretty easily be explained because there's only one entrance at Niagara Falls station, which is at the back of the train. And there's only one entrance at St. Catharines station, which is in the middle of the train.